welcome back to the Rules of Engagement. You know, someone just tweeted at me, hey, I want to watch this show, but unfortunately my time zone, it's past midnight, is running rebroadcast or anything. So, you know, a great way to catch up on all of our shows, youtube.com/official MLGSC2. Every single piece of content we do live here, and actually some extra content like top 5s, comments of the day, etc. All that we put up here, youtube.com/official MLGSC2. We put it up within an hour or two. And of course, you know, it's always great to catch shows live so you can interact on Twitch chat, ask questions, etc. But, you know, if you can't catch it live, YouTube's the way to go. And in fact, for my show, you can tweet me questions anytime. You don't have to, I don't only answer questions that are tweeted to me while the show's actually going. You can tweet me those questions whenever you want, and I'll answer them at the end of the show, and you can catch the answers on the YouTube video as well. So YouTube's a great way to catch all of our stuff. youtube.com/official MLGSC2. So now let's get to the Q&A section. So the first question is going to be from Miguel Moreno. And it says, how do you counter smart Swarmhost play as a Protoss before you can go full Sky Toss? So of course, Sky Toss is really nice against Swarmhost because the Locust can't shoot air. So, you know, Void Rays are really great against them. Tempest can be good, although I'm not sold on Tempest as that great because by the time you can get to them, the Zerg can easily get Vipers that can pull you into Spore Crawlers and Hydrotus. So they have to combine them with Templar, but it's extremely hard to keep Templar alive against those Swarmhost waves and in range. Because remember, the Swarmhost range have range like 50, right? And so your Tempests have to go way beyond your ground army to pick off those Swarmhosts, and then you can't cover them with the Templar, which are what protects you from the Vipers. So I'm not so sold on Tempest, but in general, you know, Phoenix with range are great. In fact, I think the best way to counter Swarmhost is just go air from the start, have those Phoenix around, and even get the range upgrade into Phoenix, and you can pick away from the sides and stuff like that. But if you didn't do that, or if they have really good defense, like a lot of Hydrotus with them, you're gonna have to do basically what I was saying in the last game: to split up in multiple ways, use recalls, use blink stalkers, because basically, think of it this way. Zerg can get Broodlords 5 minutes earlier in the game than they used to be able to do. And the Broodlords now have like 50 range, but they're not quite as scary. They're like less scary, but they can attack from like the whole map. So they're more scary in some ways, less scary in others. But the Protoss has recall much earlier. So you can really, your mobility is insane. Just, you know, send a Warp Person one way, your army the other. You warp in here, you attack there, you recall out, you blink here. You just got to keep avoiding them and playing the, you know, make them play the whack-a-mole game. Expand in corners and just keep attacking everywhere. Next question is from Ryan Hearn. And it says, shouldn't Rhett have used corruption in the game you just showed? The Locust could have done a ton more damage. So, I mean, yeah, there was a couple of games where he had a bunch of corruptors and he overmade them. And then he would kill the Colossi and not really use the corruption. So, yeah, I mean, he could use corruption. But the one thing that's important to remember, there's always small micro things that can help a tiny bit. Like corruption would help a tiny bit. But those should always be of a lesser priority than your macro and your multitasking, right? So yeah, it's great to use corruption. It's great to like individually pull back hurt guys and do all the fancy micro. But always take care of your macro and your multitasking first. Like multitasking as far as macroing at home, defending counterattacks, building more overlords, building, you know, teching up, continuing your upgrades. All that is more important than the little fancy micro. It's going to have a bigger impact on the game. And yeah, if you're, you know, life for someone who can do it all, then do it all. But if you can't focus on the macro first, that's a little more important. But yes, corruption is a nice little touch to add on micro-wise. So last question is going to be from Godin Nabihi. Why do we see less Zerg drops than the other races? So Zerg drops are kind of a really interesting topic, and I mean, sometimes you see these big Zerg Doom drops, right? But normally you don't see, like, Terrans will send one medevac, drop Marines, Protoss will warp in a few Zealots, etc. Why don't we see Zergs do that with the one Overlord and a few units? And the main reason is because Zerg doesn't have any, like, high DPS units. Like, you can drop 8 Marines, and 8 Marines will wipe out an entire base if they're not responded to immediately. Right? Protoss can harass with DTs. Zerg, you can drop a few Roaches, but the Roaches, like, each Roach does less DPS than a Sim Marine, and there'll be 8 Marines versus 4 Roaches, right? So, they don't really have that small commando squad that can just destroy everything, except for Infestors, which are a little higher for tech, and they're more expensive, you don't want to risk them. So that's why we want to see it too much, because it can't do the same amount of damage. Now, you could say, what about Protoss? Zealots and Stalkers, they don't do insane damage either. They're not like Marines. Why do we see Protoss do it? Well, Protoss warps and Zealots only when they're going for a composition where it's very gas heavy and you have extra minerals, right? The only time you see a lot of Zealot harassment, because Zealot harassment is like almost never cost efficient. It's just like, well, I want to get a lot of Stalkers and Colossi and Templar, and those are all gas heavy, so I have extra 2,000 minerals. So I might as well use it for Zealot harassment or else it's going to go to waste, right? And I might as well try to slow down my opponent so I can get this gas composition. So that's why Protoss will do with the Zealot harassment. Terran, because they have units that'll kill stuff quickly. Zerg, not so much, except I do think when you get the Hive, those adrenal speedling drops are really underused. You know, it takes some investment to get a drop tech, but the 3/3, you know, adrenal upgraded Zerglings can really take apart a base very quickly. And, you know, dropping them on like a side expansion, and they'll just, especially against like Terran, right, who builds the walls, you drop like 1624 speed in his pass wall or in the main to jump the rally. I think that could be a great addition to Zerg play. Maybe they should use. But other than that, if you're going to do a drop, you want to do damage, it's got to be a massive drop. It's a huge commitment. And that's kind of risky. Most people don't want to do that all-in type of drop play. So that wraps up the Q&A. But to tune in again tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern, it's going to be MVP versus Curious. A great match. MVP, of course, a multiple-time Codes champion. Curious, one of the best Zergs out there right now in the round of 8 of Codes GSL. Both of them playing in a best-of-5 Harder Swarm. Only one of them can win and get to the Winter Championship at Dallas. That'll be at 5 p.m. Eastern, and then following that will be Rules of Engagement analyzing the match you saw earlier today, which was Creator versus Nestea. Thank you guys for watching. See you tomorrow.